Hello there, digital world, and welcome back to yet another episode of Spliced In Later. I hope you all are well out there doing whatever it is you're doing, whether it's sampling the many shows that are on Disney Plus right now, or heading to the movie theaters to watch all the big blockbuster movies that are starting to litter the screens due to the summer blockbuster season. Unless you're here in Australia and it's the winter blockbuster season, where it's ice cold coming out of a movie at 8 o'clock in the evening, and the drive home is one of the most miserable experiences of your life. It's great living in Australia. I love it. Hurrah! Anyway, it's time for another movie review, and we are reviewing one that I have been hotly anticipating all year. It is the newest Pixar film and also a spin-off to the beloved Toy Story franchise. It's Lightyear, starring everybody's favorite toy space ranger, Buzz Lightyear, this time voiced by Chris Evans instead of usual Tim Allen. This one I've been very keen to watch it. The trailers that I saw for it were great because they were vague. They didn't really show what the movie was going to be about. There was some essence of a sort of a plot or a starting off point, but otherwise it was just incredible visuals and splicing it with David Bowie's Starman. It had me hyped to watch it. And also because it broke my brain trying to think about it, because all the advertisements said that the movie was based on the toy that Andy has in Toy Story, which makes sense, but his real life adventures, which makes you think, what does that mean, that in 1995 in the Toy Story world, Andy bought a toy for Buzz Lightyear, who was based on a real-life space ranger who went to space and fought robots? Didn't make a lot of sense. So I was interested to see what that would be. So I'm going to get that out of the way really quickly, in case you're wondering or you're confused like I was. There's a little bit of text that shows up at the start of the movie that says that Andy bought a toy based on Buzz Lightyear from his favorite movie. And this is the movie. So the movie that you are watching, this movie called Lightyear, exists in the Toy Story world in the exact same medium. It is the same movie in Toy Story Land, but it obviously has its own merchandising, its own Buzz Lightyear action figure, his rocket ship, Evil Emperor Zerg, video games, all of that based on this movie. So it isn't based on a Buzz Lightyear who did exist in Andy's world per se, not a real one, but fictional in every sense of the word. It kind of breaks your brain when you think about it. You're watching a movie that's a movie that was in another movie. So don't think about it too hard, because for the most part, that's really the only connection to the Toy Story franchise. That little text at the start, and then the character of Buzz, things he says and does, and imagery and illusions, it's all sprinkled throughout. So I don't want to talk too much about the plot. I don't want to spoil it because the trailers kept it vague, and because I didn't really know where the movie was going, it surprised me in certain instances. I was intrigued by the very different direction plot rolls and barrel rolls and things that were happening, so it kept me engaged. So I won't tell you what those things are, because if you're thinking of going to see it, you should, because, and this is another interesting fact, this is the first Pixar movie that has actually made it to the cinemas since Onward was released in 2020. So after Onward, we've had Soul, Luca, and Turning Red. And Disney has made the decision on all of those options to release it exclusively on Disney+. Starting with Soul, I don't know if Soul had like early access. I don't know if it's paid more. I think the controversial thing is that it hasn't. Unlike movies like Black Widow or Mulan or the other Disney films, which they wanted to release in cinemas, couldn't because of the pandemic, release them straight to Disney Plus with an extra fee, or simultaneously, but with an extra fee as well, like Jungle Cruise. They never did that with Pixar. So if you were just lucky enough to already be paying for Disney Plus, you got to watch these brand new Pixar movies that came out. And as we all know, Pixar are great. Pixar are very highly well respected in the animated film community because the films that they produce, in 99% of cases, are of the utmost quality, have incredible characters and story, engaging messages to tell, and themes and emotions that'll sometimes make you a quivering mess by the end of them. Soul, for example, absolutely 100%. It is probably one of the top 5 greatest Pixar films of all time. And Luca and Turning Red, also in their own ways, have their own messages to say. Incredible stuff. So that's you look at Disney and you go, that's a bit of a kick in the balls for the people at Pixar. And even people who've worked at Pixar have said, when you put all this effort into a movie and then to hear, oh, it's just going to Disney Plus and it's not even being charged any sort of extra amount for it, it makes you feel a little sad, a little down on yourself that your movie you've made is not up to the quality of a bloody remake of the 1998 film Mulan, that they won't charge an extra bit of money for it, especially when Pixar is winning Academy Awards and bringing in tons of money at the box office when they could, with things like Toy Story 4 and Coco and Inside Out and all of those movies. So this one, Lightyear, it's going to theaters. That also could probably be a shitty move on Disney's part, because I feel like they're doing it because it's connected to Toy Story. Toy Story is a familiar brand. People know of the Toy Story is probably definitely the most successful of the Pixar franchises and is utmost quality across all of those films. Everybody knows Woody and Buzz and all those characters. So if they've been worried about getting people into the theaters to watch their Pixar films, Lightyear is the one they're going to try it out, because that's going to get people in by association rather than people seeing a trailer for a new idea and going, I'll check that out. So that's a bit annoying on Disney's Plus, but whatever. The case is, it's there in the cinemas and I have seen it. The basic plot of the movie within a movie follows Buzz Lightyear, the space ranger, who is out in space going on missions with a spaceship full of friends, including a commander who's a very close friend of his, Commander Hawthorne. Through a bit of an incident, they are marooned on a hostile alien jungle planet. Very harsh environment, aggressive wildlife. So they obviously don't want to stay there. So they work on finding a way to build a new spaceship to get off Earth. But they don't just have to build a spaceship. They have to build one that's capable of hyperspeed so they can actually leave the planet and go home. Buzz being Buzz, he's the heroic hero of the film. Very Buzz of Toy Story 1. He's very, very self-assured, believes he is the one who can do anything. He doesn't believe in teamwork, doesn't believe in relying on other people's. It's always him. He's the one who's going to save the day, and he's going to do it alone. So he volunteers for these flights to test the hyperdrive. That's where I'll stop explaining the plot, because I knew nothing about the film from this point onwards, so I was surprised at what happened. If you hear any rumblings, once again, as I'm recording my episode, my cats decide it's time to play. You don't play all day, but you play when I'm recording. Thank you very much. I love you both. Especially you, Winston, because of the film I just saw, and I'll explain to you listeners in a middle bit. Anyway, so he goes on his hyperspace test flight. On his first test flight, he realizes that something has happened, which launches the film in a particular direction, which completely changes the mood and atmosphere of the film. And from that point on, there are more pivots, there are more twists and turns. So by the end of the film, you're watching something completely different to what you started with. And that's all I'll talk about there. I would really recommend people go into this film completely blind, with absolutely no idea where it's going, apart from knowing of Buzz Lightyear and his laser beam super suit and evil Emperor Zerg. You know those things from Toy Story and Toy Story 2, so that's fine. But in terms of the buzz of this movie and the world and the people he interacts with and the adventures he goes on, it's great to just go, oh, okay, cool. Oh, wow, cool. All right, I didn't see this coming. Interesting. Movie's completely shifted in tone and direction. So that's all that is. I liked that. I liked that it kept it so vague in the trailers that I could have this experience, which was great. I haven't said if I liked it or not. I did like it. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was fantastic, but I don't think it was terrible either. Again, you look at reviews online, and the general consensus is it's not up to the Toy Story level of quality, and it's not Pixar's quality, so therefore it's a bad movie. Incorrect. First off, I don't think people should compare it to the Toy Story franchise. It is a spin-off in name, but it's a completely different vibe. It's taken the Buzz Lightyear character, but it's doing its own thing with it. So you can't go to Lightyear and be, where's Woody? Or where's the emotional gut punch of having to go off to college in my Space Ranger movie? That's not fair. I do agree, though, that Pixar does have a high level of quality, and it should reach that level. It shouldn't. It's set itself a standard that you do expect that from the Pixar brand. And Lightyear does feel a bit like Finding Dory or Monsters University or Cars 3. Great movie. It's solid animated film that has a lot of heart and effort and stuff put into it, but not as much as an original brand new idea from Pixar that is trying to sell an important message about family or puberty or the afterlife or anything like that. It's taking a IP brand, it's taking the franchise of Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear and relying on that to make an okay movie that will make a lot of money anyway, just by association. Now, that's just me. I'm just a person talking. I could be talking out of my ass. Maybe they did put a lot of effort into it and they did reach for a certain Pixar bar. But me watching it, I knew right from the start that it wasn't going to be some sort of emotional roller coaster. It was just going to be an adventure film with Buzz Lightyear. That being said, it's still enjoyable. Just because a Pixar film doesn't meet the heights of Soul or Inside Out or Coco doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be down there with Ice Age 5 or Turbo or those animated films which are made just to get kids to make their parents spend money on. There's quality in here. There's great visual animation and an interesting story and action. It reminded me a lot of old sci-fi stories, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, 2001: A Space Odyssey, anything like that. Anything with a space ranger, space opera vibe. I got a lot of those vibes in there, and I think that's by design, so that's good. I had a good time with it. I do think it's lacking in certain bits, which we'll get into in a minute, but for the most part, it is what it is. It's an action film starring Buzz Lightyear in space. You get exactly what you pay for, I think. Chris Evans as Buzz, it's a little hard to get used to him because you're so used to Tim Allen as Buzz, but eventually he does find his groove. This is a different style of Buzz. Obviously, the Buzz in Toy Story has the whole toy dilemma. He's an action figure, so his attitude and the way he talks and interacts is obviously based on being a toy. This Buzz in this film is, it's a movie within a movie, but for all intents and purposes, he is a human being, and Chris Evans plays him like a young hotshot Top Gun type of character who's very full of himself and quick to push others aside because only he can succeed in the tasks. And then, of course, in most Pixar star films or most animated films in general, he goes on an emotional journey and learns how to accept help from people, that he can't do everything, that the world is not all about him, all of that stuff. And he does go on that emotional journey, and it's believable, and Chris Evans sells it, which is pretty good. The supporting cast are fine. No one particularly stands out. There's no real memorable silly character, and that's very noticeable because one of the characters is voiced by Taika Waititi. He voices one of Buzz's sidekicks in the film, and you can tell Taika Waititi is trying really hard to not do Korg again. So as a result, I think he tries a little too hard to be less silly, which when the character screams to be silly, you don't have to be Korg again, but you still gotta invest some energy and excitement into your character. And it sounded like Taika was asleep at the wheel, which is disappointing because you look at characters like Korg or Blackbeard in Our Flag Means Death, and Taika Waititi has so much energy that this character as well would have been perfect to put all that in, to a point where I wasn't even sure it was him. I spent the whole movie going, that sounds like Taika Waititi, but not enough. So it's probably not him, because if it was Taika Waititi, I would know it's him, and I didn't. There's the other notable characters I will mention who actually were pretty good was a character called Izzy, voiced by Kiki Palmer. She is the foil to Buzz in this film, and she has a great emotional arc about wanting to be a space ranger, but being absolutely petrified of space, which is pretty interesting, and I enjoyed her arc through this movie. And also, a huge shout out, as I just mentioned before, Winston, my cat. There is a robot cat in this movie called Socks. If you've seen the trailers, you probably know who he is. He's sort of like Buzz's companion. I was worried that he would be annoying or just silly for the sake of being silly, But props to the people who made Lightyear. Socks is just a great supporting character. He's like Buzz's technical support. So he knows how to do calculations and to give him the information he needs to complete assignments and whatever. But he has the characteristics of a cat. So the way he moves, the way he talks, the way he uses different sort of cat mannerisms to produce the gadgets that buzzers use. It's all very cat-like. And he's not abrasive, he's not loud, he doesn't say silly things or have goofy catchphrases or make odd jokes just to break the tension. He's just Socks. He's just Buzz's friend, and he's so adorable, and he's so sweet and kind and friendly, and he looks exactly like my tabby cat Winston. Not exactly, obviously, Winston is not a robot, but he is the same color, he is the same size, and they have the exact same mannerisms. Like they're both cats, so that would make sense, but he spoke to me personally because I saw a lot of Winston in Socks, so that may be a bit biased on my part. But as I said, I was relieved that he wasn't just silly and goofy for the sake of it. He was just, they knew when to restrain themselves with him, and that was great. I loved Socks. He was the best part of the movie, in my opinion. As I said, the imagery, the animation, it's Pixar, so it's always going to look good. There's nothing truly unique about the film. It's not like Luca with its painting style animation, or Turning Red with the hyperness of the mayhem manicness of being a young person in that movie. It's fairly standard animated style. A lot of the space stuff looks really great though, traveling at hyperspeed, looking out into the void of space. There is one harrowing incident in this film where a character has to go out into space, and they mention on the concept of what space is. It's just vast empty nothingness, and if you mess up even just a little bit, you'll just drift endlessly for the rest of your life. What an awful way to die. It keeps me up at night thinking about that, how you could just end up just floating through space until you starve to death eventually, or your dehydration or something. It's horrible. And that vast emptiness of space, they really showcase it in what you see. And there's a really harrowing point where a character may actually end off drifting into space. And I was for that moment, I was on the edge of my seat, because the concept of being lost in space and seeing it happen on screen in front of me, it was intense, which was interesting. I know people want me to mention Evil Emperor Zerg, but I don't want to, because they've decided to keep him very vague in the trailers. So you get a unique Zerg, a Zerg you've not seen before. It's a different type of Zerg to what was in Toy Story 2 or even the Buzz Lightyear animated show. He is fine. He's in the beginning, he's a very generic sort of villain. As with most Pixar's, there's an edge to the character that you learn later on, which I won't reveal, which does hype him up a bit from that point. So Zerg starts off, gets pretty interesting by the end. The film suffers in a couple of places. One being its direction is a bit aimless in the beginning. It sort of doesn't know how to start the movie, so it just sort of starts throwing stuff at you. It doesn't ease you into the film per se. Which leads me to my main point, which is a thing I have with a lot of spin-offs for films, which try too hard to remind you that the film you're watching is a spin-off of something. Lightyear is really great when it just focuses on telling the story of Buzz Lightyear on this planet, doing his missions and going on adventures and fighting Zerg on its own. Where it fails is where it takes a moment to go, this is the Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, so we need you to remember that this is the Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. And they do that by sprinkling dialogue that he says in Toy Story and Toy Story 2, and possibly Toy Story 3, throughout the movie that he just says naturally. So, for example, the opening of the film has Buzz walking out onto an unknown planet. His dialogue is the exact same dialogue that Buzz says in the original Toy Story when the toy wakes up, gets out of the spaceship, and walks along Andy's bed, and he's like, the ground is a bit springy, there doesn't seem to be any intelligent life anywhere. It was an interesting start, and I thought, okay, cool. But then it's throughout it's catchphrases, it's reacting to things, you're mocking me, aren't you? It's not today, Zerg. Stuff like that, which is fine, but it's not natural to the movie. It's not flowing dialogue where he would naturally say those things. It's like they tried really hard to find moments in the film that he could say the things that he says in Toy Story. So it doesn't work for me. It's not organic. And also, I don't like that. I don't like the idea that either one or the other. It's okay. So having Buzz say the exact same things he says in a different movie, but reacting to different things, takes away from the actual character of Buzz itself, whether it's Toy Story or Lightyear. If you just say that Buzz is just a generic blank slate of a character who would say the exact same thing in different scenarios involving different people, he loses that uniqueness. The first Buzz, he's unique because he is a toy that thinks he is a space ranger. So he reacts to things as if he were a space ranger, but unique to the perspective of Andy's bedroom. It's not programmed into him that he would say those things automatically. They're not catchphrases. His catchphrases are on his toy suit. He presses his buttons and he says his catchphrase. His organic mouth, where he says his words when he talks to Woody and Bo Peep and all of that, are things that come out of his brain, I would hope. But if you're telling me that his dialogue in his brain is just completely built around the Lightyear movie that he's supposedly based on, then he loses a lot of his personality, a lot of what makes that Buzz unique to this Buzz per se. I hope I'm getting my point across. I'm confusing myself when I say it, but it's just, if the point is just to reference Toy Story, fine, but I don't like that the two characters start to mesh together and they lose that sense of specialness that made Buzz such a great character to be introduced and follow in that Toy Story. Lightyear, when he's not quoting Toy Story, when he's doing his own thing, when Chris Evans is allowed to be his own Buzz, is interesting and funny. He has got some dry wit, some good comedic timing. He has his own emotional arc and journey he goes on to learn to be a better person. And I don't need to be reminded every 20 seconds that he is what inspired the toy from Toy Story, and he'll say the lines to do that. Everything else works better. It's just the dialogue. The way he gets his laser, the way he gets his wings, that is all part of the story, and that's exciting to see that built. Just the dialogue, not a fan. Overall, Lightyear is a perfectly enjoyable and good time animated film. It's not going to be in any of my Pixar top 10s whenever I go through them, but it's not going to be down the bottom for sure. It's a nice middle tier movie. I wouldn't hold it up to the standards of Toy Story. I would allow you just to know what you're getting into when you watch it, which is just a action adventure starring Buzz Lightyear per se. I enjoyed the trip it took me on. I enjoyed the surprises, the twists and turns. I liked not knowing what was going to happen in the movie, and the story arcs and the story directions changed a lot, so it kept me engaged and interesting. I thought Chris Evans was a good Buzz. I really enjoyed Socks. The little cat is adorable. The supporting cast were fine, if a bit underused and a bit lifeless. But overall, the action and excitement, I had fun with it for sure. I don't regret watching it in the slightest. It's on my top 10 for this year. It's down towards the bottom, but it's a solid animated film. Certainly better than a ton of Pixar films I've seen. Certainly better than a ton of animated films I've seen. And it doesn't deserve to be, it's not as good as Toy Story, and it's not Inside Out, so don't bother. It's perfectly enjoyable and fine. Just allow it to stand on its own feet, and I say that to the people watching it, and I say it to the people who made the film, because if it does well, I feel like there's definitely going to want to be a Lightyear 2, and throw off the shackles of Toy Story. Now you've done your Lightyear where he references all of that. Never bring up Toy Story again. Have Buzz Lightyear in this world do his own thing. That would be awesome. I doubt they'd do it, but that's what pulls the movie down for me from being a great time to just a good time. Gets a 7 out of 10 from me though, which is solid recommendation. Definitely go check it out. Give the people at Pixar who've been waiting for one of the movies to be in the cinemas, give them the respect they deserve and go see it where you can. there you are. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. I will be back next week for a couple of episodes, I think. Definitely for a movie review, possibly for something else. It depends. As with most of my episodes, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I sit down, put the microphone to my mouth, and just start blabbering. But I hope you'll be here next week to tune in for that with me. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate you all as always, and I'll catch you next time. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.